Welcome everybody to the June office hours, now proudly sponsored by the month of July. It was a very busy June. Thank you all for being patient with me while I slept after not sleeping at Fiddle Camp. Played all of the gigs I needed to play and got back to hang out with all you lovely folks. Let's see. Hope I'm coming through loud and clear for everybody. We got Denise, Alf, Nelson, Pater61, Mark, and Lisa. Great to see you all here. Thanks so much for joining in. As usual, Alf gets the prize for latest person up latest in the evening or earliest in the morning for this. 2 a.m. in Norway. Had to set his alarm to wake up. That's true dedication, so I figured I would send that first tune out to him, the new 5-cent piece, which is on my website, but only because Alf clued me into that great tune. And I play it all the time now, so thank you, Alf, for that lovely tune. I hope you can sleep in tomorrow. Alright, I hope you all are doing well. It was a long day for me, but I'm excited to be here. I woke up at 6 a.m. on an island in Maine where I had played a contra dance the night before with my bandmate Julia and a bunch of musicians in the island community. It was a beautiful day. It was kind of played in the evening while the sun was going down on the island, and a lot of people were there to dance and watch and play and listen. It was a good time. I had to wake up early, get on a boat, get back over here to the mainland, and happy to be back and figuring out what's next. If this is your first time here, welcome. I see a lot of familiar faces at this point, but great to have you all here. The way these work is it's pretty wide open. If you've been to any of the Saturday live streams, it's like that, except a lot more mellow and chilled out, and I'm not scrambling to read through the chat quite as fast, and get to dive a little deeper into any questions you might have. So don't be bashful. Throw out any question about what you might be working on or having trouble with or thinking about in the music world. Happy to talk about all that stuff. No question is too basic or too advanced. It's all good. And I'm sure whatever questions may be out there, everybody else here has that same question or something similar going on in their head. I know that I learn a lot from you all just by trying to answer your questions and being like, well, I don't know. What do I do here or there or this tune or that tune? So let's jump into it. Got folks from all over the world. We got Denise in Michigan, Alf in Norway, Nelson's in North Carolina, Pater's from Texas. We've got Mark from Southeast Ohio, Lisa from North Texas. Marvin is most local to me at this point from Vermont. Good to have you here, Marvin. All right, Denise says, I went to 3 days of Midwest Banjo Camp in early June. What a great event. I think I finally recovered. Yeah, Fiddle Camp's really, whoops, I'm pushing buttons left and right with my fancy little foot switch. I don't think I pushed anything wrong, though. Yeah, Fiddle Camps will really take it out of you. Let's see. A couple weeks ago now, I was out for 10 straight days at Maine Fiddle Camp, which is always a good time, but also very tiring. There's 3 sessions. There's a weekend session, and then a week session, and a weekend session. And everybody comes in to whatever session they're going to as a camper with ready to use up all their energy. And by the second weekend, I've been there for 7 days and a whole new batch of people, and it's great, and they really lift up my energy. But then, whew, by the end, I'm ready to sleep for a while. All right, and Chip from Austin, Texas. We got a great, strong Texas contingent here tonight. All right, thank you, Andrea. First time watching. Glad you could join us today. Chip has a question. Without a pick guard, are you wearing a spot on the top of that Ellis? I am not. I will even zoom in to point out the lack of spot. There's plenty of little scratches and things just dirty because it doesn't really, it looks clean in the video, but it's kind of dirty. You can maybe see a little bit there, a little kind of scuffed up. I've definitely hit this instrument on the ground. Like, I don't really baby this thing. It's got plenty of scratches, and I dropped it on the headstock once. I like the first major ding that I put in it. I had my mandolin. Whoops. Let's see. I had my mandolin around my back like this, and I was outside, and I think the strap just slipped off the end pin, went right down on the headstock. Got a little ding in the back, but no harm done. Thank goodness. No structural damage. And I learned my lesson. Always keep a hand on the instrument if you got it slung around you while you're walking around. But yeah, I do not have a any spot in the top because I don't plant any fingers, which I recommend if you are a planter and it works for you, great. But from my experience, planting is really going to add a lot of unnecessary tension to your hand. So by planting, I mean taking a finger or two fingers. A lot of people will do this. I used to do all kinds of crazy planting. I used to plant my wrist like back here. I don't know how I did it, and just play like really close to the bridge somehow. I don't know how I used to do it, but I didn't wear through the finish, but I wore a nice finish spot on an older mandolin that I had right here. Just from not thinking about my technique and planting and putting a whole bunch of tension in my arm. But in general, you know, even if it is like pinky planting, I find that puts a lot of tension into my hand, and I don't like tension, so I don't do it. It'll also keep your mandolin a little cleaner just by not having that constant rubbing going. I wish I had that mandolin that I used to plant down here because it has that spot there. And the person that owned it before me, I think they used to plant their pinky in the F-hole of the mandolin. So it was like all worn down straight to bare wood all around here. Which, you know, I'm not super concerned about the aesthetics of the instrument. But it definitely, you know, you are going to wear through your instrument a little bit if you are planting. Let's see. Yeah, I don't brush the top. And some people do, you know, great musicians do. You'll see, you know, I've got a lot of instruments with wear on them, that got it before me, and a lot of those instruments are some of the best sounding instruments I have. But yeah, my playing style, for whatever reason, I don't tend to brush the top or plant or anything like that. I definitely think you know, I've definitely gotten some like errant pick strokes down through, and somehow there's a big old pick stroke down there. I don't know what I was doing way down there, but there's like a little swoop of what I can only assume is a pick stroke down there. I mean, the only real wear on this instrument is, let's see if I can get this in the picture, where I put this armrest on. If you look at the end of the instrument, I don't know if I'll be able to get this to show up, but all through here, there's these little kind of stab marks from where I was tightening the armrest up or taking it off or something. But other than that, it's pretty clean. I've worn a lot of the finish off the fretboard. I don't know if you can see that. This is like a different color. Like right here, it's all pretty white, and then it gets to more like the aged color of the lacquer on the instrument where my hand doesn't go. That's about it. I've definitely, you know, put some dings and cracks into instruments. But this one stayed pretty clean somehow. I've just mostly been lucky, I think. Denise says, I hear the dings sweeten the tone. I mean, I definitely have some instruments, like my tenor guitar that I have, that's like my favorite guitar that I own, is just wildly, I'll get it just to show you what a dinged up instrument looks like. Where is it? So the way I think about it, like a lot of these instruments, especially older instruments, if they're all dinged up but in good like structural condition, it means they were played a lot and they are gonna sound better from getting played all those years. So my main tenor guitar, this thing, which is a Martin from I think 1966, and the main you'll see the let's see. So the main thing is right down in here. It's no longer round because whoever owned it before me played right through. It's actually like right down. There's a little brace that kind of goes here on the instrument to stiffen that part, and they played right into the brace on that chunk of the instrument. It also, you can see, it's worn down here and here because somebody was playing up over the fingerboard for a long time. And that it's almost through in one of these spots. And I've actually had my luthier just put, like, I think he refinished this stuff. And then actually, this is good to think about. I actually have worn into this instrument all this wear. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but all this wear down here is actually from me because I play down here. And I think for a period, I don't think I actually dig in quite as hard as I used to, but for a while I was digging through the strings into the top a little bit and kind of digging pretty deep holes into the top, and actually just had my luthier setup guy just put, I think he just put super glue in the hole because I was just like digging through, and then he'd put finish on it and I'd dig right back through it. So I was just like, what can you put in there to really make it so I'm not going to dig a hole straight through the top. This is by far not a pristine instrument in any shape or form, so I didn't feel bad. Super glue is not your kind of go-to thing. This is very much a player's instrument, so I didn't feel too bad. I mean, it's had a neck reset, it's got all new frets, it's not original or anything. So yeah, sometimes if you gotta, I've heard crazy stories about Trigger, which is Willie Nelson's guitar, and that thing's just got like holes through the top, and he's like, it's the same guitar he's had his whole life, and it's really, there's a great little YouTube video on like Willie's history with Trigger and how he's had to it's totally kind of been like reconstructed just to keep it from totally collapsing in on itself over the years. All right, anyway, back to the musical side of things. Richard, good to see you here. Says, do you ever think in terms of pentatonic scales while improvising? The short answer is no, I don't really. I think I did for a little bit. I remember learning sort of this, like, sort of D pentatonic, 0, 2, 4, 0, 2, 5. And getting that and like thinking, okay, that's like a D pentatonic scale, I'm going to play that over a D tune. I think what that does is it definitely, the way that I see pentatonic scales, and I'm sure this is my own kind of slanted view on it, with pentatonic scales, especially like, major pentatonics, what you're really doing there is you're leaving out you're leaving out two notes. You're leaving out in the key of D, so going up a D string. You're leaving out the G natural and the C sharp, which are both notes that are not going to sound great. So if I strum a D chord and sing a D pentatonic scale, so I just sang a D pentatonic scale, and all those notes sound pretty good over that D chord. So often I think that sort of major pentatonic sound really just it kind of keeps you from hitting any notes that are going to be particularly bad sounding. which is fine. You know, it's a very safe choice. But what it leaves out, so I'll sing those other notes now. Ya da da da. So that G ba doesn't really mesh well with that D chord. Ya, and then we're up to A. Ya da ya. So that C sharp also doesn't go well with that D chord. But it's so rare to have a one chord song. So when you get, you know, if you're playing in the key of D, those are great notes to hit when you're on a D chord. But as soon as you get to a G chord, you're probably going to want that G note because it's the root of a G chord. And when you get to an A chord, you're going to want that C sharp, which is the 7th note in a D scale, but it's a very important third of a scale. So those notes do kind of play important roles. I think for me, what was more helpful was to just play straight major scales over, you know, if you're in the key of D, play in the key of D major, and just let your ear guide you. And if you're hitting, like if you're hitting this note ba over the D chord, ba, it's not going to sound that good, and your ear will pick up on that. And if you hit it and you're like, oh, that's not good, and you move on, no problem. But if you avoid it from the get-go, you won't hit it, and you won't know what it sounds like, and then when you'll be less likely to play it when you get to a G chord. So if your chord progression is going D, G, A, D, then we're gonna have D. Like if I play, let's see, how do I do this? So if I improvise over that using the pentatonic scale. It sounds good, but there's not a whole lot of shape to that melody. Whereas if, again, your chords are going G, A, D, you can use those notes that aren't in a D pentatonic scale, that G and that C sharp, to really tell melodically the listener when those chords are happening. So that has a lot of, so first chord is D chord, G chord, A chord, D. So using that G note as a strong home note when you get to a G chord is important, and playing that C sharp, the third of the A chord, is going to be important in the A chord, and it's going to give your chord a little more, or give your melody a little more shape rather than just kind of always kind of easy listening like major pentatonics. It's always good, but it can leave out some of those kind of more dissonant notes, which can be good in terms of like not hitting a quote-unquote bad note, but can also kind of make your improvisation a little bland. So I would say use the whole scale and just keep your ears open to try not to really hit the G and the A, C sharp, or whatever your 4th and 7th note of the scale, major scale, are when you're on that home chord, because those are going to be the ones that really, you can pass through them, but if you really like, if you're playing a D chord and really like hammering on a C sharp, it's not going to sound so good. So there's a quick little, and it probably came out more of a rant than I would have liked it to, but that's my kind of thought on pentatonics. I think ultimately kind of where I went from there, so I kind of, started with pentatonics, was like, okay, these are nice notes that aren't going to sound bad, they're not going to clash, and then going to kind of, I'll just play the whole major scale and get a sense for when those notes that aren't in the pentatonic scale are appropriate, And from there, I think my next step and how I sort of think about it now is kind of any note is fair game, and just kind of knowing what, like, just having that sense of not only your major scale, but you can throw in notes that aren't in your major scale, as long as you kind of know where they are and know what you're going for. So that involves like blue notes. So, see. You know, that sort of bendy stuff where you've got in the key of D major, you've got your F natural to F sharp, back to a D. That's the nice bluesy sound. It's kind of got that minor sound. Same thing with your F natural to F sharp, or C natural to C sharp. So those are notes that are outside of the major scale. And I think, you know, as I became less reliant on thinking about scales, my brain really started to just think like, it started to trust itself more. And this just comes from practice and repetition. Like, did that note sound good over whatever was going on with the chord structure? And even, you know, so now I don't really necessarily think about scales at all. I'm just... You can kind of hit whatever note you want. That was kind of... some notes will kind of give off this feeling of like, whoa, this is getting far out, and this is kind of sounding like some kind of experimental jazz. But that's not a problem as long as you kind of know that's what's going on. I've got a great, or what I think of as a great lesson, a great exercise anyway, called Sing What You Play, in the Technique and Fundamental section of my website, where I kind of go over just kind of singing along with the scale. And it'll strengthen your voice and your connection of sort of what you hear in your head to your fingers. And then from there, you can start to sort of improvise a little. And then get outside of the scale. And sort of you kind of often our voices have a stronger sense of improvisation than our fingers do. So if you can get in the habit of kind of playing what you're thinking, that's going to help with kind of all sorts of stuff. That was kind of a rant, but I hope there was at least some little nugget in there for somebody. So yeah, and then Denise said, I tried messing with pentatonics at a jam. I think it worked. I'm sure it did. You know, that's the thing that, again, like, pentatonics are a great thing to work on. And, you know, there's nothing that's sort of like, oh, don't practice that because that's wrong or bad or something. And, you know, it's what people are, I know that a lot of, like, jazz musicians will say, like, learn your pentatonics. And I don't even understand why they say that. There must be like a further reason, but in sort of my like kind of folk theory world, that's kind of a little bit twisted from studying some jazz. I think of kind of the way that a lot of folk musicians use pentatonics as a little bit limiting. So that's why I don't particularly use them or teach them. But that said, you know, it's definitely going to keep you from really hitting any clunkers. I think what I've learned to do is just embrace my clunkers. Chip says, if you ever see Emily Lester's mandolin, it looks like he plays it with a chainsaw. Brush marks only. He doesn't plant. I don't think I've ever met Emery Lester, and I can't remember if I've seen a picture of his mandolin or not, but I love his playing. Alf says, anybody playing Texan fiddle tunes? Currently working on Huckleberry Hornpipe by Byron Berline. I love the sound of Ellis and Pava's. Bought a Pava A and love it to bits. Glad to hear it. How long have you had that, Alf? Because I know you were looking at him, but is that a recent acquisition? Uh, if so, congratulations. I have not played that. I might know some tunes that are Texas tunes, but there's that sort of kind of Texas fiddle style that I really like, but I don't know any of those tunes. I mean, I wonder if like where does Brilliancy come from? I think it comes from Eck Robertson or Roberts, who I don't know where he was from, but that's sort of become that Sam Bush version of Brilliancy. Especially this. That sort of stuff, that up the neck sort of stuff. Really, I like that stuff a lot. I just don't know much of that repertoire myself. I wonder, Alf, I think one of the Mandolin Mondays that just came out is a version of Huckleberry Hornpipe that's quite nice, if you haven't seen that already. Okay, cool. And then I'm just slow to the chat. Denise said, I just heard that on Mandolin Mondays. Denise says, I left a Pava behind at camp crying. Chip says, my 53 D18 looks as though it was pulled out of the trash heap, but the voice is to die for. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And you think about like really iconic guitars, like whether it's Willie Nelson's Trigger or like Dave Rawlings' Epiphone archtop that he's got. He literally found that like neglected in the corner of a friend's like garage under a pile of like totally in not playing condition under a pile of sawdust. And now he's made so many like beautiful records with Gillian Welch on that thing. And you know, it's the things that are really beat up probably means they were well loved. Oh, Mineola Rag starts out with a pentatonic scale. Yeah, and that's actually a good point, Nelson. I think it's helpful to be able to recognize when that stuff comes up, whether it's a pentatonic scale or an arpeggio. A lot of times I'll talk about tunes as like collections of pentatonic scales, or collections of scales and arpeggios, like Real Saint Antoine. Is almost all arpeggios and scales. So we have this arpeggio of A, and again, and then straight down the scale, back up, arpeggio, again, down the scale, then you have this little turnaround, which is kind of this little like scale pattern. So if you think about scales, scale patterns, pentatonic scales, and arpeggios, that's going to be the building blocks really of a lot of fiddle tunes and a lot of folk music. And it can be really helpful to recognize it, even if you're not necessarily like practicing your pentatonic scales in order to improvise. You know, let's see, like how much of that tune I started with, New 5-cent piece, how much of that is pentatonic? That's all pentatonic. Got one C sharp. I mean, you can play the whole thing pentatonic, just leave out that C sharp. I'll do that. I'll play the tune I started with, New 5-cent piece, as a pentatonic tune to the best of my ability off the top of my head. all pentatonic. No G's and no C sharps. B part. So you can play the whole tune very pentatonically, leave out a handful of C sharps, and you've got a totally pentatonic tune. But what that also leaves out is Lewis points out that Liza Jane is also pentatonic. That said, if you want to add double stops, you're going to be using notes that are outside of the pentatonic scale, unless it's just a one chord tune. So if you take like Liza Jane, that right there, that F sharp that it ends on, the A part, or halfway through the A part, is a part of a D chord. So you're going to need a D, which is not in your A pentatonic scale. Sort of gives you that sound, versus that makes it sound minor. So you really need that D natural to make it a D major chord. So it is a pentatonic tune, but in order to actually get the full kind of chordal harmony going on, you're going to need to use those other notes to kind of create those chords. But once you get to the full, you're talking a 7-note scale instead of a 5-note scale. 5 notes, pentatonic, penta, 5. And so when you get to the full 7-note scale and use all 7 of those notes, then you can really play like all the double stops, all of the chords behind all of your tunes. Even if the tunes are pentatonic, you're kind of widened out to more opportunities. Oh, cool. You use that minor. That's cool. I like that. That F sharp minor. When I played it, I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. But it's not. I usually play. The hard one to sing. That F sharp's nice. I like that. That's the thing too, is like the chord. I was just yesterday and this morning I was out on an island doing a community contra dance, and guitar players were asking me about chords and looking at some sheet music and being like, well, my sheet music has an E minor in it. Is that wrong? And I'm like, well, no, it's not wrong. It just is a little different. Everybody's going to do their chords. If you've got one reference point for a melodic note, if you've got an F sharp, that could be the F sharp in a D chord, or it could be the F sharp in an F sharp minor chord, or the F sharp in an F sharp major chord, or the F sharp in a B chord, or the F sharp in a F sharp down in 7 chord. There's a bunch of options. If you've only got one kind of reference point of melody, and that's where you can what's called reharmonize. Or I guess I don't know if it would necessarily constitute as reharmonization if it's just somebody's kind of harmonic arrangement or chordal arrangement of a tune. Reharmonization kind of I think requires kind of some establishment of a standard set of chords and then doing chord substitutions on top of that. Anyway, that's another whole little sidetrack. All right, and Lewis earlier said, hello from band practice in Evansville, Indiana. Have to watch the replay later. Well, thanks for stopping in all the same. Okay, nice. Yeah, you got it from Elderly. I think I remember you saying that. Worth every cent. That whole new 5-cent piece. Gone towards a mandolin. Oh, Atlanta. An old bat company. That's a bat company. Bad company. Cool. I don't know enough about Bad Company to. I only know whatever their one hit that always ended up on the radio that I can't even pull out of my head right now was. Oh, Alf says, can you play some Farewell Try On? You like the version on my old time record? Cool. Yeah, I'll do that. Alright, yeah. I think I can remember. So this is a tune. As far as I know about this tune is what I've heard is that it's a traditional tune, but that James Bryan, who's a great fiddle player, played a lot with Norman and Nancy Blake. I think he may have written the third part of the tune, but I don't know how much substantiation there is to that. But it's a great tune. It's in the key of C. I'm pretty sure it's on my website because I put all the tunes from my album on the website. But here's a little Farewell Try On. If I can remember it. Oh, it's been a little while since I played that one. Took a little second to get back into my fingers. Okay. Lisa said Alison Krauss did Atlanta on an album. That's ringing more of a bell. Oh, Atlanta. That's all I can remember. But yeah, I think I must have heard that from Alison somewhere. Cool. And Lewis says that's closer to the one that they do. Yeah, so Farewell Tryon, Key of C. Definitely a fun tune. I really like the Key of C. There's a lot of great tunes. It's just got some interesting like double stop. Like in that B part. So the tune, like the chords of this tune, it's almost the A part's almost entirely C. And then the B part has this really kind of iconic, it gets crooked and there's a nice 4 chord and F chord. And it just gives you that nice opportunity for some of those double stops. Because it's so kind of drony on that C for the whole A part and most of the B. You could, that's that you're playing a C note, so it could stay on C. But whoever wrote this thing, however many years ago, or whoever came up with the chords for it, said, "Oh, it needs a little break from that C," so they put an F chord over that C note, and that really makes the tune for me. Go to a quick little G there. We can get this nice little so the melody's that C, and then you have a little F chord underneath. So I do 2, 3, 3. That high 3 on the A string being the melody. So yeah, it's nice to explore a new key and kind of see what you can do in there and what suits it. All right, Lewis is headed back to practice. Have a good rest of your rehearsal, and keep on picking. And thanks for tuning in. See you next time. And Lewis brings up a good point. He says he's gonna have to tune in later. If you missed any of this or want to see any of the old back lessons, there's I think, well, if you can't find it, it's somewhere. There's multiple things. There's a what's the word I'm looking for? YouTube playlist of all of these office hour back lessons. It's on the Patreon site somewhere. If you can't find it and you're really looking for it, shoot me an email and I'll send you a link to it. And also Denise has put together some awesome PDFs for episode guides. And actually, maybe Denise, if you're still around and you have those links to the episode guide, I don't know if YouTube will let you post them in here, but it's worth a shot. Denise put together an episode guide and a tune list and like a technique and fundamentals, or kind of like a technique index for kind of all the different topics that we talk about on these office hours. She also does ones for the MandoLessons Live public Saturday ones as well. So if somebody has those links, sometimes YouTube's a little stingy about letting links go through, but we could give it a try. Or if you can't find it, shoot me an email and I can kind of send you a link to the back catalog of these. And if you ever like have a question that you want to ask on one of these but can't make it to the live thing, you can always post a comment on Patreon and I'll answer it on the air so you can watch it back later. And you can use that same link, if rather than watching it live, you can go back to that same link that says it's happening live and you'll see the replay. And Scott says, first time with you all. Thanks. Very helpful and well done. Thanks so much for joining us. Glad you could make it. And thanks so much for your support. I think I'm mostly caught up. Not sure where to find the link. I was trying to post links the other day. Let's see if I can find them. Let's see if YouTube's going to agree with me here. And let me post a link. Come on, share. Working nice and slow. So here is that link, assuming YouTube's gonna let me post it. Fingers crossed. Hey, that looks good. So there's the episode guide, which will give you links to all the episodes and like the topics within the episodes. Here is the tunes link. So this is like the tunes index. And last but not least is the techniques index. And Denise does a very good job keeping these things organized, searchable, because Patreon makes it hard to search through things, and YouTube makes it hard to kind of scrub through all this. What I need to do, for a while I was going through and putting these timestamps as like as comments in the video description. I should go back and do those. It's hard to keep up, but when I find a few free seconds, I'll get back into that. I'm going to write myself a note right now, or else it's going to go out the window. Let's see. If I didn't have a note-taking device, I would write it down by hand, but if I didn't do that, I would just forget everything I'm supposed to do. MandoLessons. What do I call this? Sticky timestamp comment. Sure, I'll remember what that means. Yeah, Denise, as always, 3 cheers for Denise, because she turns, what ends up, I mean, how many are there now? We've got how many office hours? I don't even know how to count how many office hours there are. A couple years worth of office hours, once a month. She's done over 50 episodes of the MandoLessons Live. We're probably approaching like 100 episodes, Denise, of monthly things. And you're the only way that anyone can find anything within there. Alright, so I think I'm all caught up with the chat, but we've got 10 minutes left, so if you got more questions, throw them out there. I'll play a little tune in case anything comes through here. And I'll play another C tune, because the key of C is a great key. Here's a tune called The Tennessee Mountain Fox Chase. perspective. Not as well as I used to be able to. I got a little faster than I expected. Started out a little slower than I wanted to. Ended up a little faster than I wanted to. It all evens out to the perfect tempo. That's what I'll tell myself anyway. I don't know where I learned that tune. Tennessee? Huh. I'm actually... Let's see. If I can spell Tennessee, I will look. Oh, well, no, it's... I don't know where I learned it from. It's on a couple albums, but none of those are really ringing the bell. Fireworks on the Mandolin. Yeah, I've heard that middle part on the tune there. Is the dogs yelping. Kind of a little bit sounding. I love a good story in my tune. Well, alright. I think, unless anybody's got some last minute question, let me just make sure nobody's posting anything over on Patreon. Because sometimes people throw questions on over there. It's looking good. Might be about time to wrap up. It's almost 9 o'clock. But thank you all so much for coming out and spending the evening or the morning, or, well, I guess probably not morning for anyone here. A lot of folks in the U.S., but early morning for Alf anyway. Making a late night of it just to come hang out with you all. So thanks again. I'll be back at the end of the month to do the real July office hours, since this is technically the June one. One last little announcement. If there's anyone in the Northeast or who is planning on being in the Northeast in November, there's this event called Fiddle Hell that apparently is a great time. I've actually never been, but I've been hearing great things about it for years. And if anyone it's in kind of central Massachusetts, north of Worcester, Mass. And if anyone, it's in November. If you look up Fiddle Hell, you'll be able to find the exact dates. I'll look it up now. But if anyone's going to lives in New England and wants to go, or wants to come out for it and needs financial assistance, I'm teaching down there so it's November 8th, 9th, 10th this year. And there's some scholarship money, or at least there was last I checked with the director of that weekend, that camp. He's hoping to maybe get to some mandolin players. So if anyone here, or if you know anyone who kind of lives in the New England area, wants to go to Fiddle Hell, and might need some help getting there, shoot me an email. Try to hook you up with Dave, super nice guy who runs the show. It's going to be a great time. I'm really looking forward to checking it out because I've heard so many good things throughout the year, and I figured I'd throw that to you guys first in case you know anyone in need, or maybe you'll just be there anyway. In any case, mull that over. Great hanging out with you all this evening, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.